Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. And I did forget to add the Chief Shenanigator in there. I'm going to have to update our intro.
I know you're never going to get. You're going to get updated at that point. Then someone's going to give me a new name, so that's all right.
Yeah, but we are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, let's get started. First off, Jana, I did add you to the back end, so now when it does the preformed show notes stuff where it says the list, I have listed Jana S Brown, author, Chief Shenanigator. I just got to get you on the show notes.
I love it. It's all good. I love being a Shenanigator.
So Jana's introduced herself way too many times. So instead, we're going to let Mike introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
Hi, I'm Mike. I write under Mike Jack Stoumbos, and I also publish with Wonderbird Press. I am the editor of the Unhelpful Encyclopedia series, which we're primarily featuring with Murder Fish, live on Kickstarter, and closing soon. So plug in that immediately, and we'll come back to it frequently.
Absolutely. So why Mike Jack together and not just Mike?
There are far too many Mikes. So weirdly enough, Mike Jack was not a given name. It was a random high school thing where there was like an alphabetical misfile. Jack got attached to me. There is no Jack Stoumbos, and my fellow theater kids thought that it was hilarious to keep calling me Mike Jack. Was it funny? No, but it stuck. And so I retained Mike Jack. And so Mike Jack Stoumbos and MJ Stoumbos have just kind of stuck around. And anytime you walk into a room and yell Mike, you make 5 new friends, unless they're jerks. But if I say I'm Mike Jack, in case there are other Mikes, then we're good there.
All right. And you're old enough to remember, give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything.
Oh,
yeah, I heard that.
I have a half brother whose name is Mike. So I have heard those. I have used that joke, in fact, when we were younger.
Usually, at the end of it, like my mom would say, "Hey, Mikey, he likes it," all the time before it. Like,
oh yeah, that one too.
So
yeah, that was right up there with it. Shake and bake, and I helped as far as one-liners in our family. And all the kids are like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yep.
Oh, so sad, so sad.
All right. So before we get started getting to know about you, Mike, let's do the religion questions because you do have to pass this test. Are you ready for this?
Yes, I'm ready for this test.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
I'm going to have to go 2 of the above, Star Wars and Star Trek. I do like Firefly, but I have tattoos for Star Wars and Star Trek, and I don't have any for Firefly. So I've got a combat tattoo, and then I've got... I will show the Star Wars one. So I've got the Empire and Rebel overlapped insignia there, which gets blades so long as we're at it.
Can you show it one more time? Now they got you full screen.
All right, we'll go full screen and tattoo up to the camera or close-ish to the camera.
I dig it. That's nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you get tattoo for this? Is that Star Wars and Star Trek together? Is that what that is? That one's
Star Wars. The Star Trek is a comm badge on my chest, but I won't go around.
Yeah. No, I get you. Yeah, so that what I'm hearing from you though is it's just an excuse to get another tattoo.
It could be. I could see that.
Okay. Those are acceptable answers. I like all of the above, so there's really no wrong one there. Although sometimes the hyper optimistic side that sometimes you get with Star Trek was a little too clean and unrealistic. Like the idea of working in money wasn't a thing. It's like, have you met people? I've met people, and that doesn't work. But I'm told by people that are deep in the lore that they expand past that, and that was a one-liner that got sort of labeled onto them. And if you read the deeper lore, that's not necessarily true.
They also make fun of that a lot more in some of the other series, like in Lower Decks. They do joke on the whole, like, oh, we're going to pretend the money's not a real thing.
So I'm told that was idealistic and didn't last in the canon. So, all right. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, the Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
Out of those 3, I have the most fondness for Narnia. But I think I'm going to lean instead Lord of the Rings. I did a reread of the Lord of the Rings trilogy this summer, and I very much enjoyed it. It was nice to, go for when I say reread, I was re-listen. I go for walks in the woods with my dog, listening to Merry and Pippin having shenanigans, and that was awesome. Like I had a great time with that. My dog is not named Pippin, but it would be a good one.
Yeah, see, we giggle because that used to be one of the options, but because Lord of the Rings won hand down all the time, JR went and changed the options, and still probably, I don't know, at least a third, if not half the time, our guests will come on and they'll say, well, these three are good, but my heart does belong to Lord of the Rings, so even taking that choice out, it still wins most of the time.
Fair.
It does. It does.
It's awesome.
Indeed. One of the crying shames of adulthood is we stop asking each other the important questions. So we are trying to bring that back thanks to the patronage of our sponsorship. And I'm going to ask you, Mike Jack, what is your favorite dinosaur?
My favorite dinosaur is the Parasaurolophus or the Parasaurolophus. I don't care which pronunciation. I like them both. And that was my favorite because of the pronunciation. I was a dinosaur nerd, as I think everyone was somewhere between the ages of 4 and 18. And I liked a lot of them, but that one was the one where I discovered people said it drastically differently, and I started counting out the stresses in the thing, and so it was Parasaurolophus or Parasaurolophus. And that was, I don't know, that was something that tickled my brain in a fun way when I was like, 6? And it stuck. And if you're wondering which one that is, that's it has like the thing sticking out of the back of its head. So the tallish herbivore thing with the one non-horn spike sticking out. The one that the dude in the Lost World calls Elvis, as opposed to Friar Tuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast. We are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. So coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Both, and usually as simply as possible. For a long time, I avoided both because I felt like every time I was trying to chase some amount of sugar with it. And then when I started drinking it with no sugar, no cream, no nothing, I was like, oh, I'm enjoying the heck out of this experience. So I will also lean back to Lord of the Rings and go with Gandalf on the just tea, thank you. And that works for me.
Okay. If you give me a second, I am going to throw up an image. So talk to him, Jana. Pretend you like your guest. And I'm going to throw up a picture of that Parasaurolophus. Just because it looks
fun
cool.
to say.
That too.
We'll go with that.
Cool.
Okay, but see now you've got me wanting to do that instead of talking about other things. So anyway, he's going to go play on Google. So we're going to talk about other things because we can do that. Sure. So let's see. We were talking about the different things that you like. What got you into science fiction and fantasy, either as a reader or an author or a little bit of both?
I mean, as a reader, like the big buy-in was as a reader and as a viewer and as somebody who always wanted to talk about it. I loved Star Wars and Star Trek as a kid. My uncle was super into, there it is, the Parasaurolophus. My uncle was super into the Twilight Zone and would host like Twilight Zone marathons and stuff. And we had some neighbors that were really excited to show me like retro sci-fi films and stuff. So it was one of those things that like I was around and I clearly glommed onto it. I was very excited. And so anyone who had a passing interest, I was like, tell me more. And they wanted to tell me more. Orphans of the Sky by Robert Heinlein was like one of the early. I mean, like it's a novella, it's a shortish novel, but it was super fun to dig into. It was one that I could read and digest and enjoy as a kid, and it was recommended to me by my cousin who was older, and I thought he was clearly the coolest person in the world because he knew about more adult sci-fi than I did. But yeah,
makes him very cool.
Yeah, so it's something that I really liked just kind of playing around with. And so when I started noodling with short stories, a lot of times I would try to model them after like Twilight Zone episodes and see if like, okay, what is the weird what if that I can poke at and get to a gotcha ending. And that was just fun. Like so long before I was in any kind of mode where I was looking to publish stuff. It's just fun to noodle around and be like, I'm going to write some Twilight Zone episodes.
Nice.
Okay. Now, when you were a kid, like, did you start with the classics? Did you ever get a phase where you were reading the Barsoom or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or any of the older ones. They would have been older for even us.
Yeah. So I've read through the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars series up through, I think, book 5. I don't know if I continue going into like the Chessmen of Mars and stuff like that. And yeah, those ones I think I encountered first as a teenager. I think middle school is when I got introduced to the Foundation series, and I found them fascinating and felt like I didn't understand a bunch of the stuff that Asimov was talking about. And
sounds about right.
And so yeah, and so like so somebody else was like, well, here, read this and it'll help you understand more about science fiction and like, you know, the physics and the cosmos and blah blah blah. And go figure, it was a nonfiction book by Asimov, which made even less sense to me. So I got introduced to some of like the classics, and then whatever we would call the, I don't know, the sort of the Silver Age. Like people refer to Asimov as like the godfather of science fiction. So in that era as well. Yeah.
Okay. Does any of that flavor the way you tell your own stories at this point?
I think so. I think it would be hard not to. I think frequently, like, you know, you might not find this among all writers, but I think a lot of writers really are just kind of pulling from what they love and wanting to play around in the sandboxes that they really liked as kids or as early adults or as, you know, whatever age of older adult. I don't know. I'm minus a little bit of hair by now, but like I will still geek out over a lot of things that I read. And yeah, I think that they do have some influence that I could point to directly and be like, this style, this character feels like a throwback, and some stuff that's just going to like suffuse in because I've been surrounded by it. I like to hope that I've read enough random stuff that I'm not going to be, you know, pulling from one style too exclusively.
Oh yeah, that's always trying to build what an author voice is like.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, for our readers, trying to figure out what is also going to appeal to the readers that are, you know, your ideal readers. That's always a little bit of a challenge, because it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it changes over time. You compare that very first thing you put out with what you're putting out now, and you go, well, there's a dashed line between them.
Sure.
It's not exactly the same, but you can see the, you know, those stylistic influences.
So
cool.
In a minute, we're going to start talking about the Kickstarter that brought us here, which is the Murder Fish Anthology. Yep. But how did you get into short fiction? Were you always a fan of short fiction, or did that come more later when you got into writing professionally?
Yeah, so I would say yes, that I was always into it. So my first like work that I got out in front of the public was actually writing for theater. So I was writing stage plays and getting those ones produced. And like that was great. Not gonna knock it, but like it was so much work trying to wrangle everyone and figuring out whose schedule would align with whose to make it happen. And when I started teaching, so I was a high school teacher for about a decade, it just wasn't feasible. Like that wasn't something that could ever fit into my schedule. And so like, you know, as a young adult, I'd always noodled at short stories because they were short, they were fun, they were what I was exposed to. And so yeah, so I just kind of kept like playing around with them. And I've run into a lot of writers who like they really want to get into anthologies because I think that's the gateway process, that's the stepping stone in. And I ask them, cool, what kind of short stories do you like to read? And so frequently I get the comment like, oh, well, I don't really read short stories. I'm like, but you have to have something that you've enjoyed that you want to. But yeah, so I like writing the short stories. In the fiction world, I did get my start publishing through short stories, and mostly it was because they were things that I could you know knock out in a weekend and then polish up for the couple weeks afterwards, and then send off somewhere while I was teaching. And that made it a lot easier to be able to juggle.
Yeah, so I'm of an age where I remember the Reader's Digest version of books, where basically it took classic novels that were only about 40,000 words, and they condensed them even shorter. And so for me, that's kind of how I started reading was short content. So for me, it's always been a passion project. If I break even on my anthologies, I'm happy. If we make a profit, great.
Yep.
Because for me, it's just I love this. And there used to be magazines you could send to, and other like publication. A lot of those just went away.
Yeah.
As we transitioned to digital. So this is almost just paying it forward because I love short content.
Yeah.
So much possibility without having to tie yourself to one eventuality.
Yep.
Can be fun. And you can explore things. You can explore things without having to fully commit to see test ideas out, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think we're seeing a resurgence in audience because I'm talking to more people who are going, yeah, I don't mind short fiction, especially when it's that it becomes that filler for all of the millions of tasks that we have to do that require things like standing in line. We went to a Monster Jam. I do enjoy Monster Jam. It's one of those things. My boys convinced me that watching trucks smash other trucks was tremendously fun. They're not wrong. Yeah. But the problem with Monster Jam is the truck goes through and it smashes other trucks and it's very exciting and all those things. And then you sit for a while they bring out the little bulldozers and everything and they flatten everything out and they redo the turf. And during that time, it's like, well, now what am I going to do? And so, it's either having the notebook and scribbling, because every writer I know does some version of that, whether it's on the phone or whatever, or this short fiction fits in so nicely to be able to say, well, I'm just going to open up this anthology. And that's about enough time to read one, 2 smaller entries or 1 longer entry. And you can do that while you're waiting for Monster Jam or all those other things. So I think it's really important. So, but though the real question, though, is for your high school students, did they know that you were publishing things and think that you were a rock star, or was this, never the twain shall cross?
No, they mostly knew and didn't seem to care. So that was
that. Good heart. Just
yeah. I will admit, like, one of the things that I was a high school English teacher, yay cliche, check. And one of the things that I wanted to do before going into that profession was to have written and published some things. Like, I didn't really care if it was fiction, nonfiction, theater. I didn't care if it was a bestseller. I was just like, I wanted to have done it, because as a student myself, I was always frustrated when I would interact with teachers who, hadn't written or published anything, or at least not that they were willing to talk about. And so, yeah, so it was one of those things that I like, okay, I made a point of doing it. I absolutely never assigned any of my students anything that I'd written, because that's just that would not make me feel good. I guess no judgment to anyone who's listening who may have done that or been in a classroom that did that, but
no ego.
But yeah, no, I would say that for the most part, in the last couple of years of teaching, like, my students knew that I was writing stuff, and my last 2 years in particular, I had a science fiction trilogy out, and it was under Mike Jack Stoumbos, and Stoumbos is my last name, so like they could connect the two, and I would mention it and be like, yep, this is the thing, and then I'm moving on. And every now and again I'd get like 1 or 2 who were very curious about it, and like, cool, ask me your questions, I'll answer what I can.
Nice.
Yep.
That sounds cool. Like, what always shocked me is how many times you'll get English teachers that even taught creative writing that don't understand the process behind creating the books that they, lauded.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I've been to a couple cons. I don't do many. I don't like crowds, but I've heard a couple of times where I knew they were English teachers because they introduced themselves. And they're like, what do you mean it takes that person 9 months to write a book? It's only 60,000 words. I'm like, well, you don't know what else he's got going on in his life. And he has to make this make-believe world believable.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just scribble, John walked down the street. Well, what does the street look like? What does it smell like? What else is on the street? Who else is on the street? Like, you teach this. How do you not know this? It was sometimes frustrating. It was just like, if they hadn't told me they taught creative writing, I would have been like, okay, well, maybe, whatever. Like, they're doing the classics. But if you're teaching creative writing, you would think you would know what's involved in the creative process.
Yeah. Yep.
I would think. I
or at the very least want to encourage people's creative process instead of shutting them down because they're not writing fast enough. Hopefully.
Yeah, and like I said, everyone's got their own thing. Like, you don't know, like, maybe they're slow because they've got kids they're watching full time, or
Right.
whatever. Like, you just don't know. So yeah, it was always amuses me. Although the other trope is they tell you as a new author not to let an English teacher be your, an English teacher, be your editor. I'm like, well, if they know grammar, why couldn't they be your editor? I never understood that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I only had like one student ask if I would like edit or publish something, and I basically just like I put a stop to that immediately, and I was like, it's like, nope, this thing does not cross. I am here as your teacher. If you have curiosities about the writing process, ask me. If you're like, where do I go next? If I have this manuscript, I will throw out a couple ideas. But no, we're not entering a business relationship.
Yeah, that would be awkward.
No.
They can't sign contracts at that age anyway.
Oh yeah.
So if kids are publishing, what, I guess their parents sign for them? Is that how that works?
I would think so, yeah.
Because we went to the 20 Books to Vegas in 2016. I know that that thing is closed now, but when I went in 2016, they made a big deal about one of the girls in there was like 10 or 11 or something like that. I'm just wondering, how did she sign that contract then?
Yeah.
I published my nephew, and I signed with his parents. So it specifies in there that they are his legal guardians because he's not capable of signing. He's not legally capable of signing a contract yet, and so they get copies of all of the reports. For it's the cutest thing. It's a 17,000 word assignment that he got from his teacher that exploded. Because it was supposed to be 1,000 words, but he got so involved in this whole researching Greek myths and what he thought of them that he turned in the assignment, and then he just kept going. And one day he looked at me and he says, "Aunt Jana, you publish books. Is 17,000 words big enough to be a book?" Sure, we'll do that. So yeah, we do have a contract because, note to anybody out there who ever wants to do this. Mostly we talk to readers, but just, for 1 minute here, make sure you have a contract, even if it's family, maybe especially if it's family. And so I just have his parents sign, and then they get copies of everything, and I pay them and they pay him royalties.
The funny one was in 2016, they were making tweaks to what adult content would be allowed on certain websites. And so agents of these like Kobo and Drafted Digital, maybe it wasn't Drafted Digital, and I don't remember, but a lot of these non-Amazon companies were up there talking about what their policies were and going on and on. And because there was a kid in the audience, they couldn't say what they were going. So they had romance, and then what they called active romance is how they described those kinds of books. And I'm like, now I'm picturing like geriatric romance, and they're going to call it like passive romance or something. Like, because I just gave them credit for being like quick on their feet, because they did not know they were going into an audience that was kind of like a 12-year-old, right? Like, I'm sure that was not on their dance card. Hilarious. Okay. So now that we're here, normally this is the part, dear listener, as we transition from talking to Mike as a creator to Mike as the creator of the specific book we're talking about, we would enter a commercial, but his Kickstarter is going to sponsor it. So before we start getting into the nuts and bolts, can you tell us what Murder Fish is?
Yeah. Murder Fish is an illustrated anthology of science fiction, fantasy, and horror short stories involving fish and intent to kill. 21 stories, each of which is at least loosely inspired by a real-world fish, and spun out by the imagination of the number of authors that we got in there. It's the third installment in the Unhelpful Encyclopedia series. The Unhelpful Encyclopedia started with Murder Birds, then went on to Murder Bugs, and now we're doing Murder Fish. And Unhelpful Encyclopedia, because as you look through them, you will get little factoids and images of the fish as if they are kind of real-ish, but you'll also get the very worst case scenario of the way that your goldfish is literally trying to kill you, or the way that your eel is going to like lure you into a cult.
And of course, if you're looking at the screen, dear listener, dear readers, he's got a little graphic of all the authors in the aquarium, as they're calling it, that I threw up on the screen. Some handsome fellas in there, and one you might even recognize. Wonder who that would be on the second row from the bottom in the middle.
So Jena Rey, the pen name that could belong to anyone.
That could belong to anybody, certainly not me.
For the catfish story, for a prize worth noodling for catfish story, and I recently got the art in for that as well. CL4s did, and
it is so cute. I love it.
The funny thing is right before we got on, while I was waiting for everybody, because I was waiting for the images you gave me to download, I just threw it on YouTube and let the first short that popped up. And there was a video of a guy, there's a shark that beats itself. So they were trying to hold the shark so they could get it back in the water, and it got free and took a chunk off the dude's leg.
Oof.
And so I'm thinking, it made me think, if the only thing more perfect than this anthology is if you release it during Shark Week.
Yeah, that could be fun.
That would.
I think I would have planned that. We only have one shark story. We have a couple stories that also have sharks, but we only have one official shark story. Strangely, we did not get a lot of sharks submitted.
So, like, what is the basic premise?
Too obvious.
In my head, every time I think of deadly fish, I'm thinking of that episode of Primeval where they're on a submarine and it accidentally goes through the portal back in time. And so now this nuclear-powered submarine is fighting off like
a megalodon or
megalodon or whatever the ancient giant shark is. That could swallow the whole submarine, by the way, except for they shoot explodey things at it. And so it's that could be like, were you limited to like here and now, or could you go outfield? Like, could somebody have done a portal fiction?
Yeah. So really the big thing is like it has to be close enough to inspired by a real creature that I or somebody else can illustrate it. And we do sort of like this pseudo-scientific diagram style and or painting for a lot of them. But really you can set it anywhere that you want. So the stories are like, there's some fantasy, some science fiction that are very much not on our world. So the giant Pacific octopus one is set on another planet. It's called The Witch of Tarthus, and it is about a giant and growing larger octopus that is terrorizing a crew that is scouting a new planet. Which it's just that's just fun. So yeah,
I'm getting very Elder Gods themes going on.
There are some of those, yes.
So how did you pick the topic for this one? Because obviously you've done other animals, but how do you pick what's next?
Yeah. So murder birds, birds, bugs, rodents, and fish were sort of the initial 4 that were pitched. And murder birds I started with because I have a parrot. I'm very much a bird person. Like in terms of like random factoids about animals, it seems like more of them spill out of me for birds than other creatures. And then bugs went next because, as it turns out, a lot of people I knew had short stories that featured bugs, and it hits a lot of phobias in a fun way. And it's like, okay, we're gonna expose you to a lot of spiders. Bug very loosely defined, by the way, and fish very loosely defined, by the way. Anything aquatic is fair game here. And then fish ended up being the third one. That was kind of like, I want to do the fish side. For animal types that I'm afraid of, I'm not afraid of bugs or birds nearly as much as fish. Now I will eat them. I will go fishing. But the idea of going swimming somewhere and having something grab my foot and drag me down is terrifying to me. At some point, I'll like tick off all of my phobias in one go and go scuba diving in like a derelict ship or something.
That'd do it.
Yeah, that would freak the heck out of me. I mean, like I'm already cringing over it. So yeah, so Murderfish, it was one of the ones that was kind of on our list to begin with, and it was the one that I wanted to get going after birds and bugs.
So are you going to be doing more of these, or is this the last one?
I think we're going to be doing more, but we'll probably be changing it up a little bit. So in the last couple anthologies, we've had 20, and now 21 stories in this one, and I think it'd be fun to be able to do some shorter pieces. The Unhelpful Encyclopedias ended up being kind of thick, and so we're talking about doing like half as many stories, like a 10 to 12 range, and picking some other subtopics. And so we wanted to do reptiles, so we're talking about doing sinister scales, and I'm not sure how many people would get into this. I mean, I don't know. Like, so readers who are listening, if you want to chime in and let us know which thing you would find most interesting for a collection of animals. There are a couple people who are very emphatic about wanting an anthology about plants that kill people. So some version of like, let's get carnivorous flora going on. Let's have, vines that grow around people and strangle them. And I'm game for it. So yeah. They'll probably be doing,
I don't know, 10 to 12 is... Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to...
means we have to work hard.
So when I was in high school, we had a girl that was a rabid PETA person, and I like a good slice of bacon or a hamburger or whatever. And so just to tweak her nose, because I was that kind of troll even in real life, I showed up with a t-shirt that said Pet P, People for the Ethical Treatment of Plants. They have feelings too, And so now I'm picturing like that could be like the plant comes to life. It's like, you're gonna cut my weeds down, are you? And just go full murder hobo on them. That could be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that working. Like, they've had enough of being eaten.
Yeah. You'd like a play on Godzilla versus Biollante, or however you're supposed to pronounce that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They unionize and fight back. The garden vegetables.
Yep.
Okay, those sound interesting. So what for the Kickstarter, obviously, like, this Kickstarter closes, we're recording this on the 19th. I will air it tomorrow, the 20th. From the day it's aired, you have 5 days before it closes to get in. What can they get for the back? Like, what are the tiers of the backing for people that don't always know how the Kickstarter works? Could you go through that for us?
Yeah, so the Kickstarter, it's a pre-sale platform where you're basically pledging, and we're using it as funding to get the thing produced, pay the authors, pay the audiobook narrator, and then once we release it, we will send you copies of the books. And the main 3 that we do are ebook, paperback, and audiobook. So the audiobook side of anthologies, that is something that I have discovered that I love and I don't find often enough. And so that was one of the goals with this series, that we wanted to not only have, the illustrated copies so they could feel like, those nice old school encyclopedias, but with fiction, but also do narrated ones. Annoyingly, narrated and illustrated don't go super well together. I haven't figured out how to do that. If we can get the illustrations to pop up on your phone when you're listening,
that would be awesome.
Or write a description of it for the audiobook guy to read, I guess. There's a super cool image. You should really buy the print copy too.
Yep.
And then describe it.
That could be a thing, yeah. And then so we also do some rewards that are there are fewer of them available. We offer Tuckerizations, and if you're not familiar with what that is, Tuckerization is if somebody gets their name, or in our case, we also do, you can possibly submit a pet. So your name or the name of a favorite pet plugged into a story, and often it's to be redshirted. Not always. So when we've done Tuckerizations in the past, people will they'll pledge the tier for Tuckerizations if there are any left, and it will get you a copy of the book, your name in the acknowledgments, all of the bells and whistles up until that point, but also your name will appear in one of the stories. And so then we'll contact the backers, ask for their top 3 preferences for authors or stories that they want to be paired with. And then we'll work it in there somewhere. And also I usually ask them, do you want your character to live at the end? Do you want them to die horribly, or do you not care either way? And most people, I would say, the majority that I've seen will just say surprise me, and they're like, cool, either way. And yeah, that's fun.
That's actually my very favorite of the things that we're offering, is the Tuckerizations. From an author's point of view, it's so much fun to contact somebody and say, okay, give me details that I can put in here, because I like using their name, but it's also kind of fun if you can say, provided that they want it.
Yeah.
If you'll give me a physical description, then I will adjust that in there, and I will put it in there, and you want the full gory treatment, we will pound you to a crisp. And it's funny how many people are really interested in watching themselves get dismembered.
Oh yeah.
I have been shocked at some of the people who are like, in the craziest possible ways, tear me apart. Okay. Yep. You want to be eaten by a giant fish? We can do that. So I do love that we're offering that. And we have some other things that are potential from the authors too, don't we?
Yeah. So I do like to highlight the art. So with the physical orders, we will also do art prints for a lot of them. Conveniently, I have one here. I feel like I'm on a cooking show and just pulling something out of the oven there. So this is one for Murder Birds. This is a print of the Kestrel. And so we do small art prints. And this time, because my wife and I have been spending more time painting and getting involved in painting circles, we have also been painting more of them. And this one, I totally want to shift the fish over, but luckily, with the magic of digital editing, I can move it over slightly and reframe it in the print. And so so the plan is to do mostly full color painted postcards, which will also be rendered in black and white in the book. One other add-on to note is if you are talking to readers, I will use the language of the hosts here. So even though we're not mostly talking to you, dear readers, if any of you are writers or interested in writing, we also do short story critiques and workshops. So the Unhelpful Encyclopedias so far have been, in many ways, like we'll put out the calls to author education and support groups and like try to pull from these communities. And so there's some of these great communities who like they'll keep rallying together and putting together some really cool stuff, not just my anthologies, but other people's anthologies as well. And among them, there are some people who are like, they're newer emerging authors and they have a short story and they want to get feedback on it. So myself and some of the authors in Murder Fish are offering critiques. So that can be purchased as an add-on as well.
Okay. Now, given this has the encyclopedia sort of motif that you're doing to it with some really cool authors, is there any chance of a hardback sort of coffee table style production of these to give it the full real encyclopedia vibe, like with the hardback? That's all that?
Good question. We haven't done that yet. We've played around with it a little bit, and we're not able to get a format and a price that made sense. This is one of those things where like if there's enough interest, then we'll do it. Like, and at this point, since we do have like 3 volumes of the Unhelpful Encyclopedia, if we want to be like, all right, let's go big, let's get a coffee table book that has all of the stories across these 3 volumes, then that might be a fun thing to do. But at the moment, no, sadly, not yet.
So that's almost sounds like it's a big enough project you'd need to do it as a standalone Kickstarter once the others are done.
I think that would be likely, yeah. And if we did sort of like a collection of the anthologies and reprinted them, put them together, depending on how we were doing it, we would probably also have to recontract with the authors and make sure, like, you're also authorizing us to reproduce it in this edition in this form, which doable, but it's another step.
Okay, so for the Kickstarter, is there a tier that lets you get the other 2 anthologies in ebook as an add-on?
So you can do add-ons for the individual ebooks, audiobooks, or paperbacks of any of them. So if you're listening to this and have read and enjoyed Murder Birds, thank you, and haven't gotten Murder Bugs, for example, then you can pledge for Murder Fish and add Murder Bugs as a paperback or ebook. We also have some like bundles where you can get like all 3 of them. So the paperback collector is sort of like a reduced price bundle, like buy 2 get 1 free kind of thing. And yeah.
Do you do the book club bundle that I've seen some Kickstarters do, where you get slightly cheaper price, but you get 2 copies of one, so you can read it and gift it to a friend, so you can read it together? And I've seen they call it the book club bundle. Other Kickstarters have done that. Is that something you've looked into?
It's not something that we've done, but I'm writing that down for future reference. That's a good note.
Yeah, it's not my idea. I stole it from someone else, but I kind of thought that was cool because like part of the fun of reading is if you can find community who likes the same nerdy stuff you like, right?
Yep.
And it's hard to read at the same time from one book. So, if you get slightly lower price to get one for your friend, and now you both read the book.
Yeah, we've also, I don't want to necessarily open up weird floodgates here, but I might do it anyway. We have in the past had people contact us mid-Kickstarter to ask if we would offer like a bulk discount if they wanted to get like 5 more copies. And we've done that. We'll just kind of be like, cool, let's set a, we basically set like a custom pledge tier for that, or a custom pledge add-on, and just set it up that way. And so
cool.
Yeah, that's been doable.
Now, because this is going to air only 5 days before the Kickstarter ends, have you funded yet? As far as cool, so it's going to be there. So if someone misses the Kickstarter because they listen to this episode 2 months from now, how would they be able to track down to get this collection?
Yeah, so we're going to leave the Kickstarter open for late pledges for about 2 months following. So conveniently, for about 2 months following the close. So the end of October. We plan on having it taken down by then so that we can spool up for the actual launch, probably in late November, early December. So if people want to find it, they can still go to the same Kickstarter link and make a late pledge. The late pledges might not include all the bells and whistles. For example, Tuckerizations are not going to exist as late pledges because I need to know how many we have and how many are putting out to authors before I do the line edits with Tuckerization, for example.
Yep.
But a lot of the content will still be available for a late pledge if you would like to do that. The other asterisk on the late pledges, and the reason we want to get as many pledges in as we can before the end date, is that's also what factors into our stretch goals. So the bonuses and add-ons, extra stories, extra content. So like an upcoming stretch goal is an audiobook novella being included and just sent out directly to backers once we hit that stretch goal. So like those kinds of things are not going to be available as additional tiers. If we get if we get pledges after the fact. Beyond that, it will be up on Amazon, and we usually go Amazon exclusive. I know it's the big beast. Amazon is big. It pays. It reaches people. We do what we do. That is my neutral way of saying where we're at. And we usually do Amazon exclusive for the first 6 months, and then go wide from there afterwards. But yeah.
Okay. Did any stories, and have all the stories been turned in yet? I know the Kickstarter is closing soon, but that doesn't mean the stories are due yet.
Yeah, so this time I wanted to make sure that all of them were turned in advance. Last Kickstarter, we didn't have a lot of the stories, and that was a more of a juggle than I enjoyed. That is my tactful way of saying that. This time I wanted to make sure they were all in. So I actually ended up postponing a few things in like the Kickstarter launch date and stuff like that while making sure that we had the stories in and that they were like featuring the list of fish that we were trying to get to. So all the stories are in. There is a stretch goal for a bonus story, which now that I look at it, we've passed the stretch goal for a bonus story. That one is coming from me. So I'm putting in a story. So a giant sea serpent story called Deeper Monsters. And so conveniently that one's already turned in because I wrote it and already went through the edits on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, he's tactfully not saying that hurting 21 authors is not only like hurting cats, it's more like hurting squirrels that have gotten into cocaine, because we are everywhere and we don't know entirely what we're doing. And so it's a lot of work to be in charge of an anthology and to get back all of the things at the different steps, because there's a lot of us to reach out to and to make sure that we're on task. And so it's always a very, very big and cool thing to keep authors focused. So the earlier he can make us focus, it's probably for the better. And I just have to say, this was my second time around. So I found the whole murder thing with Murder Birds when a friend of mine got in, and she went, "This was the most amazing experience ever, and you're going to love these stories," and gave it to me as a gift.
Oh, nice.
And so I read Murder Birds, and I'm like, I want to be in one of these. So then I wrote something for Murder Bugs, and you were very gracious with your rejection. I was so close, but it was close, but not quite. But then you said, fish is coming, and that was my cue to start bubbling up an idea about a killer fish that was going to get over the finish line this time. So 3 times the charm. My third time of interacting with it, then I was able to come up with something sufficiently murdery, which was a whole lot of fun to write. And all the authors that I know that I've talked to, part of the joy of these collections and of reading them as a reader have been, yes, they're horror, they're this, that, and the other, but there's this sense of kind of fun to it as well. They're the stories that remind you of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. They're the stories that remind you of Jaws. My big shark here is the nod to Jaws. It reminds you of all those things in this short form, and they're just so they're delightful and sometimes a little bit gory, and just all the things that you want out of just a fun, like say it's Twilight Zone. It's this quick hit of how is it that birds are killing people? Don't you want to know? Yes, in fact I do. So from a reader's point of view, to other readers,
pages, like they're short, digestible. Like, why is this fish trying to kill you? Read now, and in 20 minutes, you'll get the full story and satisfying experience. So, yeah.
Jana, do you know how weird that sounds to hear coming from you about the murder scenes? You don't understand, Mike. We write together, and there are combat scenes, and she's like, JR, that's not very nice. And I've killed
I
people.
can
She's
admit
like,
when it's
no.
not nice. It may still be necessary, but
She's gotten like
you
the
know.
full mom voice on me, like, JR, this isn't very nice to them. I'm like, well, it's war. It's not supposed to be nice. So hear her get all excited to write murder scenes. I'm like, she's been holding out on me.
No.
Yeah.
It's all about do we do the CSI thing where we go in and we watch the entrails and the splattering and so this is, my husband loves to watch the Fallout. He watched the Fallout series, and he had
Oh,
to
I
watch
love
it
it.
when I wasn't home. Not because I don't appreciate the storytelling or anything else, but that thing is on the gore factor is set up to super high extra blood, gore, and violence,
Yes.
and there are limits to what my brain can take. And I can know that it's happening. I can have all those things, but when you have to zoom the camera in, my brain doesn't zoom in that far without going, yeah, I'm done now. All
Yeah.
done. So we can kill things. We do. We kill a lot of things in Reboot. Let's be honest here, but not graphically with all of the splatters.
I feel
Mostly
like I
because
have
I
to
write
ask,
it
have
and then
you
she edits
seen...
it out.
Oh, go ahead.
I write it and then she edits it out.
Know
I
your
have to ask,
audience, JR.
have you seen the opening episodes of Alien Earth?
No,
Oh,
is
yeah.
It is
Well,
it is gory. I'm a sucker for the Alien franchise. Even the ones that I'm like, oh, I don't know if that was a great movie, but I enjoyed the experience, so I had a ton of fun with it. Yeah.
That's Jurassic Park for me.
Yep. Yeah, no, I just saw Jurassic World Rebirth. It's my first theater going experience in a long time. Many years. Probably 2016.
Yeah.
Not in a movie
I've
theater.
seen 4 movies in the movie theater. I don't like to go.
Yeah.
So, are there any standout stories that you particularly, obviously, like, as a parent, you love all your kids equally and blah, 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 but you're not speaking as the creator or as the editor, just you, Mike,
As a
reader
reader.
of the things. What story stood out to you?
Yeah, so one of the earliest, the team read it, loved it, accepted it, we went forward with it. We actually used a preview story. So Real Food by Jake Stein, which features a hairy anglerfish, or a twist on a hairy anglerfish. And if you think that anglerfish on their own look weird and creepy, look up a hairy anglerfish and maybe do it on a small window, so it's not huge in front of you. Maybe it's a cell phone lookup for for the hairy anglerfish. But Real Food was a ton of fun. It is one that manages to do sort of the snarky humor type thing. It's a first person narrative about a chef who, in a futuristic world, cooks vegan. Back to the PETA thing, and is being asked to prepare a fish, or is being asked to prepare a meal that overlaps or relates to something bad that happened with a fish. And I'm not going to go into more details without spoilers there, but it's fun. It's one of those stories that it manages to get you to feel a little bit of dread, a little bit of concern for what's going to happen to these characters, what sinister plot is happening here, but it's also still funny. If you're reading Dresden Files and you're laughing while terrible things are happening to Harry Dresden, that's kind of the vibe in short story form, in terms of the narrative voice. So that one was a ton of fun. Another one that I really liked, and I want to pull out for a shark thing. So we had a smallish number of short stories that featured great white type sharks. We had a range of other types of sharks. And so there was a smallish shark, so a pork beagle shark was the name of the particular fish, one that I hadn't seen before. They're interesting. They're kind of weird looking. And this story, I'm gonna make sure that I'm getting the name right. Elizabeth Porter Birdsall is the author, and in Sheets of Seaweed, and it is this it is a fantasy presentation of a castle on the sea near sharks, and yet it was this captivating series of dream sequences and kind of being called out to the ocean. And usually when you get called out to the ocean type stories, you expect there to be some kind of a siren or whatnot that's going to be not a shark. But it was one that it really pulled me in, and it stuck with me for a long time afterwards when I read it. And I'm like, yes, definitely, this is an awesome way to play with a shark and sort of the a weird treatment of the Siren's Lure kind of thing.
Okay. Now, who is, you said your team. So obviously not everyone that contributed is part of the team that works the anthology. So who is the team behind Wonderbird Productions and the Unhelpful Encyclopedia anthologies?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say Wonderbird and make sure to like land bird. Yeah, Wonderbird.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine. We could be the best thing since sliced bread. Could we be the best thing since sliced bird? That
I do like me some
sliced
chicken.
bird would have been a great name for a story in Murder Birds, but that was not one of our stories.
Volume
2. Yeah, so Wonderbird Press is primarily myself and my wife, Morgan Stoumbos, and we do a lot of the reading and the behind the scenes, like, okay, who do we need to contact for which thing at what time. We do have a small team of like selection readers and proofreaders, and our most recurring are authors that I met at a workshop, and this would be Envy Haskell and Ryan Cole. Ryan, who is actually like local to me, which is pretty cool. So we get to show up and have a beer and chat about stories. Yeah, and so they've been an excellent help. So huge shout out to Envy Haskell and Ryan Cole. Envy Haskell also has a novel out recently that I totally should have in my notes that I can pull up and be like, bing. And now I feel bad that I don't. And then otherwise, I have a few friends who are readers who are not like they're not in the industry. They're readers because they love to read, not because they're looking to climb in as a writer. And so there's buddies of mine that I will send things to get kind of like advanced commentary and sometimes proofreading notes and stuff like that.
So yeah. Since this is as we wrap this up, but since this is, you know, our audience or listeners, I don't know if we've covered this before, dear listener, but part of some authors' creative process is they have beta readers who look at it generally after an edit, but before it goes for final publications, and you're reading it for story and for any grammar mistakes that slip through. Because I've seen mistakes in books I know got 12 edit passes. Sometimes stuff just happens. But so if you're really passionate about a certain author, it couldn't help or it couldn't hurt if you reach out and say, hey, do you need a beta reader or an alpha reader, which generally is part of the ARC team, who then goes to review it on launch day. So they have those reviews. And that's one way, if your addiction to reading is such that you outpace your wallet, that might be one way to pay it forward and occasionally get free books.
Yeah.
So that's something that helps.
It's a great symbiosis. Yeah.
Yeah, and so sometimes it's the hard part is finding people that can turn it around on your timeline. So if you're a fast reader and you love to read, which makes it expensive to read, maybe for some of the authors you're super passionate about, say, hey, like I love your books. If you ever need an ARC reader or beta reader, and you might get in and have some fun getting to be part of the process. So with that, this is the part of the interview, dear listener, dear reader, dear viewer at home, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part. It really does matter. I know that Kickstarter has a function where you can leave reviews. By the time you're doing that, the book will be in everyone's hot, grubby little hands. But when he does his next Kickstarter, people can look at his old Kickstarters, and those reviews will help sell future Kickstarters. And then even if you buy it from the Kickstarter, you can go to Amazon and leave your review there. Goodreads, make a website, but reviews really do matter, especially for small press companies that are operating on very narrow margins. So you do your part, it really does help. And with that, is there anything about this anthology we didn't talk about before we get your social media links?
No, I think we've delved in as deep as we're going to, and
because the hard part about short stories is you can't go but so deep without giving spoilers, and we don't do spoilers. So if someone wanted to, and I'll link the Kickstarter and I'll link the 2 published anthologies that are on the Amazon, dear listener, so you can find them. But how can they find you if they wanted to check out you in Wonderbird Press?
Yeah. MikeJackStoumbos.com is kind of the hub where I post things, and I also have the Wonderbird Press page attached to that. We have a Wonderbird Press Patreon. Right now, we're using the Patreon as just like a public interface to kind of have people come in, sign up for notifications, and we're going to keep a free tier in that ongoing. As we do our next couple anthologies, we're looking at doing some smallish paid tiers, but for the most part, if you're just looking to get notifications, that Patreon can be a great way to go in a social media site that won't be distracted by too many others. And then on Facebook, we do have Facebook pages for Wonderbird Press and for Mike Jack Stoumbos author. So if you look Mike Jack Stoumbos author, which sounds like a lot to type in, but I'm going to go with the link will be somewhere here or here or here or wherever you happen to find it. Keep your hands and arms inside the screen. Yeah.
I'm not that high
He's
tech.
funny. He can come back.
I just put it in the show notes where they can like hit the button, expand, and all the links are there where we listen. And then if you have any ideas for future anthologies for them, be sure to leave a comment in the viewing platform wherever that is you find us, and we'll be sure to respond and have a little bit of a dialogue. And it does tweak the algorithms for the podcast, so I'm not gonna lie, it's selfish of me to say that. And with that, you can find us, dear listener, on our link tree, linktr.ee, linktree / Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree / Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to everything: the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters, our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Madam Stabby Stab over on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the emails. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put it in the comments that it is for the podcast. These episodes aren't free to produce, and every penny helps, and we greatly appreciate it. And once you do support the show, we will give my co-hosts some of that coffee brand coffee or hot chocolate for Jana. They will drink caffeinated beverage until it pours out of their eyeballs, and we swim away on a river of goodness. See, I'm trying to include you, Jim, but that means no Java goodness.
They can use the Java goodness, but really and truly, with the fall coming in, that kind of thing, the coffee brown coffee hot chocolate is amazeballs. They have it with tiny little marshmallows.
I ordered some because I was going to try it because you were so passionate about it, but my mom stole it and I got none of it. So I guess
your mom has good taste.
Mom.
So
you're welcome, Mom. I wouldn't tell that to her face because she'd bought me, but you know. As moms do. All right. With that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right. Thank you for coming on, Mike. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
And this sounds an interesting concept for an anthology, and I look forward to you coming back for your next one. Murder butterflies or something. I don't know, but I'm ready for it. Jana, you're getting ideas. All right.
I always get ideas. Bye-bye, y'all.
Hit the